Speaker.
I call the member for Capalaba.
Speaker, I rise to address the Fighting Antisemitism and Keeping Guns Out of the Hands of Terrorists and Criminals Amendment Bill 2026. It's a part of a methodical, deliberate and measured response by the Christopher government to the devastating terrorist attack we saw on Jewish Australians in Bondi late last year. That act of evil tragically took the lives of 15 innocent people attending a Hanukkah celebration with the community and has sent shockwaves throughout the rest of Australia. This horrific event should never be or should never occurred in Australia on Australian shores, and is a duty of both federal and state governments to ensure it doesn't happen again. We are taking strong action to tackle the scourge of anti-Semitism across Queensland communities, ensure that firearms do not fall into the hands of terrorists and criminals. The Minister for Police has taken a considered approach in drafting this legislation without rushing to seek convenient announcement in favour of targeted measures that will stamp out anti-Semitism and illicit firearms at their root. Addressing such serious issues cannot be done in a rushed manner, and a large proportion of the feedback I've received from my community on that bill reflected that view. As a part of the Justice, Integrity and Community Safety Committee, I had the opportunity to scrutinise this bill in detail and hear from a range of stakeholders across the state. The committee held hearings in Townsville and here in Brisbane and asked questions to several witnesses with differing views on the proposed legislation. Of particular interest to many of stakeholders was the new strengthening offences relating to symbols and expressions. Regarding the symbols, we are strengthening the framework in Chapter 7A of the Criminal Code by allowing the Minister to prescribe particular organisations, classes of organisations or state sponsors of terrorism or terrorist organisations that already exist listed by the Australian Government, so that they are recognised as prescribed organisations in Queensland. Speaker, there have been reported incidents of flags being flown at pro-Palestine marches across the country, which appear to be associated with terrorist organisations. With these new laws, the Minister will have greater scope to act on these incidents and prevent the display of terrorist symbols on Australian soil, along with increased maximum penalty for offenders. I've seen the impact of anti-Semitism slogans, expressions can have on Jewish Australians living in our communities. Just last month, I was contacted by a distressed local who was shocked to see an offensive phrase graffitied on a bus stop along one of the busiest roads in Capalaba electorate. This constituent acted immediately and removed this disgusting graffiti themselves to prevent further other locals from having to see it. The intent of this type of vandalism is clear: to menace, harass and offend Jewish people in their local community as they go about their daily lives. Phrases that call for violent removal of Jews from their homeland in Israel and have been used at hundreds of protests across the country are completely unacceptable in our society. Australia is the most tolerant nation in the world, and we were founded on the notion of a fair go for everybody, with the ability to live our lives without persecution. Every Queenslander has the right to feel safe without being harassed or intimidated because of their identity. And I know that restoring safety in our local communities has been day one priority for this government. Under the new legislation, the Minister will prescribe two expressions which are regularly used to incite discrimination, hostility or violence towards Jewish community as prohibited expressions. This comes alongside new criminal offence for the public recitation, distribution and publication or public display of prohibited expression. This encompasses both written and spoken uses of the expressions, including chants or placards at the protests. The bill recognises the serious harm that this conduct can cause and sets the maximum penalty at 2 years imprisonment, in line with the increased penalty for prohibited symbols. Importantly, the offences for both symbols and expressions are subject to a non-exhaustive list of reasonable excuses set out in the Criminal Code. These reasonable excuses act as protection for legitimate activities which include artistic, religious, educational, law enforcement or public interest purposes, as well as the use of prohibited expressions or symbols to oppose an the ideology which it represents. Regarding the second part of the legislation, the Police Minister has it clear from the start. These laws will not target law-abiding firearm owners. We will not allow gun owners to become a punching bag and bear the brunt of a knee-jerk reaction. And we will not be taking the heavy-handed approach of a gun buyback scheme. I've had conversations with countless residents in Capalaba who have been concerned that their rights as firearm owners, who follow all of the necessary requirements, will be taken away by a government that wants to conveniently policy announcement. That is not what these laws will do. The changes included in this bill are common sense and have support of advocacy groups like the new requirement for Queensland weapons licence holder to be an Australian citizen. What these laws will do, and what they'll be unapologetic in doing, is curbing the access that criminals and terrorists have to firearms, which are used to carry out the acts of violence that harm Queenslanders. A key part of this crackdown is the introduction of a new offence relating to the use of firearms in drive-by shootings, which will carry a maximum sentence of 16 years. This penalty can be elevated to 20 years if the target of the attack is a place of worship. The attack is motivated by hate or an individual or group, or if the offender is a participant of a criminal organisation. A firm stance is necessary to ensure the credibility. Dangerous offences like this can no longer menace or harm Queenslanders. Speaker, we're also introducing new offences that prohibit the possession of distribution of blueprint material for the manufacture of 3D printed firearms. 3D firearms are a serious and growing concern with this space and are able to be created at home without approval or knowledge of authorities. Furthermore, the serious offence of stealing firearms poses an enormous threat to public safety, especially when the stolen guns are used to commit additional offences. We are raising the maximum sentence for stealing firearms or ammunition from 10 to 14 years and will omit the current aggravation circumstances which require the firearm to be intended for use in other offences. Tackling the issue of firearm theft is something which received very strong support from advocacy organisations and individual owners during the committee process, including indications that they would back the changes with awareness campaigns throughout their membership networks. Speaker, these changes as a direct response to the worst terrorist attack that has ever happened on Australian shores. Queenslanders rightly call for action on the rising tide of anti-Semitism, and that the Jewish people are feeling unsafe in their homes, workplaces, university campuses and places of worship. Measures to crack down on hate symbols and expressions will improve social cohesion and lower the temperature of debate around foreign conflicts. We know that Queenslanders also wanted common sense changes to gun laws that make our community safer without unfairly targeting lawful firearm owners. We listened, and the Christodoulou government is delivering. The methodical and intentional way in which a bill was drafted ensures these changes will directly target the real problems Queenslanders are facing. These changes will make Queensland safer. I commend the bill to the House.